Good morning, how you doing? Today is Thursday, the 6th of July, 2020. We're down in Tottenham, outside of the stadium, and the temperature at the moment is around 21 degrees because there's a wind blowing, and the wind is keeping things a bit cool. As you can see, the weather is overcast, and it's been like that all day. The time now is about 11 a.m. and as you see, overcast. Well, it's the 1 month, and we're into the 5th week after the reduction in the restrictions here in the UK. Well, no, not the UK. Here in London, England. So this is 1 month, and we're into 1 week, and today's Thursday, the 6th of July 2020, and Scotland, see, it's not as they say United Kingdom, it's Scotland, England and Wales, and so different thing applies to different parts of the union, or different parts of the country. And so not only is there a lockdown in Manchester, yesterday there's been a lockdown in Scotland, Aberdeen Angus, known for the Aberdeen Angus steak cattle that comes from Scotland. So the union from Scotland, Aberdeen, they're under lockdown, a strict lockdown. In fact, they're not even allowed to leave the area, and they're not allowed to associate with each other, more or less. They're not allowed to associate with anybody outside of their household. And last night I was listening to a radio broadcast, and the good thing about the presenter was of Scottish origin, and he lived in Scotland. He lives in Scotland as well, but he comes down to London to do his radio show. And this was a call-in show, and people from Scotland, Aberdeen, called in, and it was almost like they were imprisoned falsely, and you could hear the plea in their voices, and the anguish, and not necessarily desperation, but the anguish, like they've been locked up unnecessarily. This doesn't make any sense. What is being done doesn't make any sense. Different kind of restrictions doesn't make any sense, and you can hear the frustrations in their voices. You know, it was more than 1 or 2 people. Now, the good thing was that the presenter of the program was of Scottish origin, and he lives in Scotland, and he comes down to London to do his show, and then he goes back up on weekends. And during the lockdown, he managed to do a few shows from home, you know. But yes, from Scotland, Aberdeen, it was a cry of, you know, why are you doing this to us? You know, we haven't done anything wrong. You know, you imprisoned us. We can't move. We can't see anybody outside of our household. We can't even leave the jurisdiction. So I think that the police, and they might even call in the army to enforce, but definitely the police would ask you, where are you going? Are you how far away from your your residence are you, and so that is limited how far you can travel. But meanwhile, down here in London and in other places, the special offer where the government would subsidize businesses in the restaurant and food trade, they would subsidize them. If a customer comes in, then they will pay half price or have a reduction. And the news is that in certain areas is really taking off well. But after that is done, we don't know whether it's going to actually the business is going to fall off. I mean, that is to fire up the economy. The thing is, they did such a good job in shutting down the economy that people are still frightened. And the other aspect is that if you've been furloughed and now they're beginning to lay people off, so people are beginning to lose their job. They now, for the first time, unemployment beckons, or they are unemployed. So the unemployment rate has gone up by literally millions within the last few months, and it's going to go up to millions again within the next couple of months as the government subsidy is withdrawn from the businesses and withdrawn from the individual. So we have that to look forward to. Also, with the weather changing, as you see, over the past days, the other days I've been doing the webcast, it's been very sunny and very hot, and the weather chart says we got a couple more hot days in August for the next week or so. But I don't know what's going to happen the following weeks. Usually on cue, the weather does change and it remains overcast like this all the way through until next year. And it's only every now and then we get a sporadic couple of sunshine days or hot days. Now with the weather closing in, it's going to get colder and more people are going to catch cold, and therefore your immune system is going to be weak, and therefore you're going to you'll be susceptible to the virus. So one of the things the government's got is that right now is that you can go and get a free flu vaccine right now. The latest version of the flu vaccine is out right now, and you can go and get it free. The government is now offering that in order to immunize yourself against the cold or the flu, so that you won't get the flu. And if you do get the flu and you get the virus, the mortality rate in England is going to be high. So that's what we got at the moment. But the procedures are still in place, that you've got to wear masks, wear gloves, wash your hands, stay away from people. That's still in. Whether you use transport, mass transport, public transport, you've got to wear a mask. When you go shopping in any shop or any mall, you're supposed to wear a mask, and that's still mandated. You're mandated, and you're given the powers by the government. If somebody comes into your shop and they're not wearing a mask, you don't have to serve them. You don't have to let them in. So the government has given you the power to actually do that. But what I actually see on the streets at the moment is that there's a lot of people not wearing the mask. It's maybe, from my reckoning, it's only about 10% of people actually wearing a mask in those places. You know, so, but there's a anti-mask movement, not only here in the UK, but worldwide, America and Europe as well. and people have actually been out protesting, but they've tended to not catch the main media. It's tended to be an underground movement. Over here, the people who are calling for not to use the mask, as it's infringing on your personal rights. They're calling it muzzle, so they're saying not to wear the muzzle, or whether it's in the States, whether here, whether in Europe, there's an underground of people actually opposing the wearing of the mask. They see no reason, they have no ideas, so that's part of the underground movement worldwide, literally in the US and the UK and Europe as well. But on an economic note, what I'm finding now is that I see people either super hype in doing things, right? It's like now the economy is they're trying to get it back. People are in turbocharge, probably trying to earn what they've missed out on the last 3 months. On a personal note, I've got the bank writing me saying my overdraft and my credit cards and stuff, got to start paying more money, or they will downgrade me or take the facilities away. So the financial services now are beginning to push on people. Also, I got a note from the landlord saying that the rent is going to go up, so that now is going to get pushed again. When the Chancellor, he's now the editor of the Evening Standard, he had a hold. He had passed a motion that there's going to be a hold on public rent for 4 years. Now that is off. They're going to try and raise the rent as fast and the largest amount possible. So it's like the horses now economically are out of the stable, right? And they're now full speed ahead, and they run in and they're trying to get the maximum out of you by hook, crook, deception, the financial services, people in finance, because of the lockdown for, let's say, literally the last 6 months, they haven't been generating the income that they did before the lockdown. But the catch-22 with this lockdown is that the people who were working during the lockdown don't really feel any economic problems, because they've been working, their income they could spend normally. So if you're a key worker, your income's always been there. But if you part of the other industries that had to stop working during the lockdown, then you now are a little bit more cautious with spending. And if you didn't get furloughed, if you didn't get subsidized by the government or your employer while you're in the lockdown, and now you're back at work, you're even more cautious. You haven't literally got money to spend. So part of the government drive is actually to get people to spend money. The other group of people is the group of people who have been furloughed, who may not have a job to go back to. And as the government is easing the subsidies both to the individual and to the businesses, these people now employed by these companies are literally very frightened that they're going to lose their job. So they're not going to be spending money, right? Because they don't know whether they're going to get another job or what unemployment is going to be like. And let me tell you, unemployment and universal credit is very, very harsh. And if you've been earning £500 a week and you're now reduced to £100 a week, that's literally 1/5 of your income, right? And that is a terrible drop, you know. And a lot of people will be contemplating that in the next couple of months. At the moment in the news, loads of companies are actually laying off people. Big companies are laying off people. Even some of the companies, the food companies that are using this government scheme to subsidize and build up business. Let me just check. We're still recording. Yeah, we're still recording. Yeah. So even those big companies that are using the government scheme to boost their customers, and the government subsidizing half the price of people coming and eating, half the price of meals, those companies are laying off people. We have some skeptics who are saying, well, after this promotion is over for how many weeks, then it's going to go back. It's going to go back to how it was during the lockdown, which is next to, for some people, at least half or quarter or next to zero their income during the lockdown. You know, so that's part of the situation. So we're in a case where people, if you were normally working during the lockdown because your job was deemed essential, then the economic effect on you is minimum, and the psychological effect is also minimum. But if you were furloughed from during the lockdown, then you're a bit more worried now. You're a bit more skeptical to spend money because you don't know if your job exists. You know, the other thing that is building up at the moment is the psychological fallout from all of this. The epidemic, the mental epidemic. You know, people being locked up, not being able to talk, not being able to communicate. There is a more serious aspect to this as well. The people who are more vulnerable, who's been under lockdown, you know, can't even leave because they've got underlying conditions. Some of the support systems, like the delivery of food and other support systems, is now coming to an end. So this is now putting those people in crisis. I'm not quite sure, but I think the government is saying to them, okay, you can come out now and venture out and do things. But some of them are so shell-shocked that they're frightened to go out, because if you hear that Manchester is in a lockdown and Aberdeen is in a lockdown, so the virus is still out there, and if you're in a vulnerable position, then you know you will be very worried. So the mental health aspect of this is now, certain aspect of it is now coming to light. You know, people with depression and those kind of symptoms. The other thing is that what I'm finding is that some in what's happening on the street now, your personal assets now are now paramount. Okay, so what are your personal assets? Your personal assets is how good you look, your physical fitness and your education, or what's in your head, or how clever you are. Now, your physical fitness is kind of paramount at this moment, because that will help you fight off the virus, right, or any sickness or illness. But in this case scenario that I'm actually talking about is actually in order to get work or generate an income, in order to get ahead. And if you look good, you sound good, physically fit, and you got a good brain, you're going to get ahead, because it's all about the advantage now. Whatever advantage you have in life, that will put you over, give you a head start over the rest, because there is so much people out of work now. There's so much people in mental desperation. There's so much people now out on the streets, physically out on the streets, right? And the financial and other aspects, people are actually, there's a lot of pressure being put on them. So any advantage you have, right, you'll have to play. So today, Thursday, outside the Spurs stadium in Tottenham, Thursday the 6th of July 2020, almost the 5th week after reduction in the lockdown easing. Well, it's not eased. It's kind of the new normal. I wouldn't say it's eased, because in certain areas, Manchester, Leicester, Aberdeen, they're still under very, very strict lockdown, and so strict it is that they can't leave the area. They can't even associate with anybody else outside of their household. So I don't know what to say if this is the new normal. This is your reality. Let's say this is the reality at the moment. It changes from day to day. The frightening thing is that your borough, your area can be locked down, and they give you very, very short notice. The Aberdeen lockdown had only about four hours notice. 4 hours notice before they were totally locked down. So it means you can't move out of the area. So temperature today is around 20 degrees. It's overcast. It's slightly windy, so it's blowing a bit cooler. Tottenham Stadium, fantastic building, and this is London, England. I'll see you on the next video cast.